Hey, this is PixelBlips podcast for August 5th, bringing you the latest and greatest. I'm Andrew Ryan, that's David DeWort. This week we're going to talk about our favorite Super Nintendo titles. Last week we talked about our favorite Sega titles.
We talked about Dorkly's favorite
titles. Dorkly's favorite Sega titles. This week we're going to talk about our favorite Super Nintendo titles. Dorkly also has a list of their favorite Super Nintendo titles.
I think most websites.
The SNES was a very popular system. There's a lot of lists.
It was hard to find
more
people that didn't
importantly,
have one.
I've only played one game this last week, and man, have I played a lot of it.
What did you play?
It's a little game called Persona 3.
Oh.
I dove in.
Wait, the portable version or
Yes,
the console? Okay.
Persona 3 Portable was $10 on the PlayStation Network for my Vita. And I dove in because I heard enough people say that, like, don't wait for Persona 4, the Golden, play Persona 3. They don't like lead into each other, but
Yeah.
Persona 3 is good enough in and of itself that you should play it.
Okay.
Outside of the fact that I accidentally named my character, who is a Japanese person, my name, which sounds very weird when Japanese people say it, it is very good, very fun. If you have never played a Persona game, specifically Persona 3, if you've never played Persona 3 or Persona 4, it focuses on dungeon crawling, and then the other side of it, the non-dungeon crawling, is a high school time management, relationship, dating game type simulator.
Weird very Japanese game.
Yes, it is so good, and I'm so bad at, like, it's hilarious that, like, the thing I sucked at in high school, time management, I'm
You
like
still
really
suck at?
in love with a game, and I'm still sucking at time management. I've never played a Mega Tensen game before, a Megami Tensen game, if that's how you say it, I hope it is. I've never played a Persona game before, like, I don't know the mechanics, I don't know anything, I'm learning as I go. The dungeon crawling is, like, super addictive because it's one of those, random dungeons. So it's like, even when you play over the dungeons you've played before, there's a different layout.
Yeah, new stuff, different, well, maybe the same mobs, but different splats for them.
It gives the grind a little bit of a refresh of the flavor, and then you are kind of always working towards keeping your people healthy, making sure everyone has a good status, going into the next school day so that your academics can be raised or your charm can be raised. So that you can build these social links with different characters. Like right now I'm part of the Kendo team. Kendo is Japanese sword fighting with, like, bamboo sticks.
Yeah.
Very oversimplified, but when I was in Japan I did it a lot because I thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
Very, very Japanese. So I'm kind of balancing, like, my Kendo responsibilities, my academic responsibilities. I'm also on the student council, my student council responsibilities, while also, like, defending modern Japan from a demon invasion, and it is super fun. If you were like me last week, waiting for Persona 4 the Golden, which is coming out in the fall, do yourself a favor, buy yourself Persona 3 now while it's on sale. It's still on sale for $10, because you'll have enough time to beat it and play it
and
at least once to enjoy it before Persona 4 comes up, and you'll probably be at a better standing. I feel like I'll be at a better standing when I go into Persona 4 to know the different ins and outs of stuff.
Is it $10 for the PSP as well, or is it only $10 for the Vita?
It's $10 for both.
Okay, so I might have to.
So, and if it goes back up in price, the Director's Cut edition that came out for the PS2 is a PS2 Classics for $10.
So you can get it for your PS3 and play it on that.
Yeah,
Okay.
but my understanding is that, like, the battle system that's in Persona 3 Portable is redone to be similar to Persona 4.
So you're familiar with the control scheme and how the battle system works when the new one comes out?
Yes.
Okay.
So, and
That's
it's super fun. One good sideshow was one night my wife wasn't feeling well, so she wanted to go to bed early. So I was like, I'll just finish this last week in Persona.
No.
And I ended up staying up for 4 or 5 hours in the dark. I had it set up to use the other analog stick as the left analog stick, so I could play the game with basically one hand, and I wasted
so much of your day.
Hours, and it's just so fun, and I like the writing, I like the characters. That's always a big draw for me in RPGs. So you don't normally get, like, something like Persona on a portable, and it's built for that.
Yeah, and games that are built for those portables and are designed to, be played in small chunks are, they're nice to have for that kind of stuff.
So yes. So early stances. I'm trying to get a relationship going with Yukari Takaba, who's the main female character, one of the main female characters. But at the same time, like my kendo manager is also like we're on the side. Like I feel like I don't want like a real deep relationship with her, but I feel like it's going that way just because like I've been a nice guy to her. So I'm trying to like.
Weird.
It's weird to kind of like in a game give that I just want to be in the friend zone cues.
You can't do that. So
picking out like one or two texts, you have to kind of like, is this like the friend zone answer or is this like the friend zone answer?
Yeah, that's weird.
But at the same time, like you make male friends, you make female friends, the people on your team that like go into the dungeon with you, you get kind of like, they have social links so you get kind of battle hardened with them.
That's cool.
It's super cool. I really like it. I highly suggest people buy it.
Okay. And all I've been playing this week is Mega Man 2. I picked it up a couple days ago.
On your Super NES? Or your retro?
My retro, what is it? FC Duo.
Yeah, we do highly recommend that if you have an old system, like a Nintendo, a Super Nintendo, or Sega Genesis, that you play on that old system and you keep it up to snuff. Because like I've gone through 2 NESs.
Couple of Genesises.
Genocide. Anyway, and I've broken them because like they're electronics, they're not meant to work forever.
Yeah.
And you can't really like continually keep them up, continually maintenance
Eventually
them.
they will break, and you have to either replace them or
buy
come
a
up.
Clone.
Yeah, come up with one
that
of those
doesn't
clones.
like work 100%.
Yeah, I haven't really noticed any weird bugs with the games that I've been playing on it, but. You know, we've seen instances on yours where
like colors
the
don't
color
show up
palette's
right.
weird
Yeah.
for a level.
And so it's kind of one of those things you're like, and I use my Generation NEX, which I endorse.
That's a good system.
It is an expensive one of the clones, but it does have a very high compatibility rating.
Yeah.
It does look cool, and you can use all the old stuff with it.
Yeah, you can use your controllers in the 4-port thing that they made for it.
You can like it's set up to work with all the old Nintendo stuff, but it is one of the more expensive ones, and it doesn't work 100%. But I do use it mainly for games that it works with, and I keep one of my semi-working Nintendos like
in the closet, not hooked up,
hooked up, so that like if I ever do get a game that doesn't work with it, Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse is notorious for not working with these things.
Well, and your Mario 3, like the desert level is green instead of being a desert level, so it's kind of
like there's weirdness like. The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, the game, like the palette is like totally wrong.
It's just weird.
Yeah. Same thing with Mick Kids or MC Kids, whatever you call it. It's totally odd.
It's Mick Kids.
Well, there's 2 dots.
Oh well. Okay.
So it's weird. So there's like some palettes like. The flip side of that is the Batman Sunsoft game seems to work perfectly and look like I remember it looking. So
and you know,
and Metroid works perfectly. So.
Yeah, and all the games I've got for mine play fine.
Yeah, it seems like the Genesis and the Super Nintendo ones have a higher compatibility rating than the old Nintendo ones.
Yeah, but whatever.
But so we do recommend that if you have the old systems, you keep them up.
Yeah.
Make sure you maintenance them normally,
I'm gonna have
regularly.
To buy an N64, I think. But.
Yeah. But I do suggest you get a clone as like a backup. I've always wanted to get one of those portable clones.
Oh yeah. They had. Well, I mean, Sega came out with one.
Yeah, there's a Sega one. There's a Super Nintendo one. I've seen a Nintendo one.
I've seen the Super NES one.
The new rebuild of Evangelion. Asuka carries around a Famicom one.
Yeah.
And I've been looking for like that specific model because I was like, that looks totally awesome, and I have a bunch of Famicom cards.
Yeah.
So
okay.
So Super Nintendo. Since Dave's playing the Super Nintendo, we're gonna go down our list. His top 10, my top 10, and we're gonna compare them. So Dave, what's your number 10?
My number 10, and it's kind of a guilty thing, but I played a lot of Killer Instinct, right? I know. You were a Street Fighter kid,
and I don't like Rare. There's a big Rare contingent out there that I'm sure just gasped.
I don't
like Rare.
Who made the game? I don't care. I liked Killer Instinct. It was one of the games that me and my siblings would always throw down on. None of us were particularly good at it, but we played a lot of it. It wasn't a good port from the arcade because the arcade version was a 3D version, so they had to, take all the characters and turn them into sprites, and all the moves had to be, sprited out. But it was better than, say, the Game Boy version. But that's not saying much because it's a Game Boy game.
And it did have a fatality where woman flashes you her boobies. So
I suppose.
Clearly the pinnacle of maturity for the Super Nintendo.
Well, it was a Super NES game. But it wasn't bad. I played, and most of my list, just to be outright, I haven't played a lot of these games in forever, so this is a lot of nostalgia list.
To be totally honest, I didn't own a Super Nintendo until a couple years after college, and I found one in a garage sale. So.
Yeah. So his list is more based on recent gameplay.
Like
Mine's
games
more
that I've played recently
on nostalgia. But yeah, so Killer Instinct is my number 10.
My number 10, and my list I kind of fudged a little bit because
cheated.
there's a lot of things that I was like, I can't pick between the two of these, and I want them both on the list, but I don't want to take up 2 spots. So Super Star Wars series.
All 3 games.
All 3 games. I remember those came out right before the special editions came out. And it's really one of the things that like energized me as a kid when I played them at a friend's house to like get back into Star Wars and really enjoy those games. And I remember like distinctly liking Empire more, even though I've beaten all 3 of them now. They're super hard, like at times
they're
infuriatingly
not easy
hard.
looking.
But I remember liking Empire more because you start with the lightsaber and you can do the double jump.
You get all the cool force powers right off the bat, and the other ones you kind of have to work your way up.
Well, and you have to work your way. It's weird because in the first game you have to work your way to the lightsaber. In the second game you have to work your way to the first force power. In the third game, Return of the Jedi, you have a lot of stuff already. And it's also
so it's
super hard.
like they're meant to be played in order in 2 settings.
Like the movies, yeah.
Yeah. So if you watch all the movies at once.
Yeah. The other good thing is like you bounce back and forth from other characters. So one level you'll be Luke, one level you'll be Chewie, Princess Leia in some later games.
From what I've seen, I have not played these games. From what I've seen in Star Wars, you're mostly Luke, right?
Yes.
And then,
but you also play as Chewie and Han.
Yeah. And then you work your way, like you start out as Leia in Jedi.
Yeah, Jedi. Yeah.
Because that's where the movies start. So it's almost.
So they do a good job of mirroring the movies. Yeah. Better than I think most movie licensed games have ever done.
So they looked pretty good.
So what's your number 9?
My number 9.
Tear through this pretty quickly. So.
Yeah, we're gonna have to.
Because we want to get through the top of the list, or what we consider our best Super Nintendo games.
My number 9 was Super Bomberman. The first Super Bomberman, not 2, 3, 4, 5, however many they came out with.
I do love Bomberman.
Bomberman was fun. Again, this is one of those games that me and my brother or my sister would sit and play. We would just kill an afternoon playing Bomberman, either working our way through the story mode or just doing the versus mode, just going back and forth. And I still love Bomberman games. I remember playing Bomberman 64, which was weird because it was all 3D, but it was still a really great game. So that series, even though we haven't seen any new Bombermans in a while, at least as far as I know.
No, Bomberman 0. But wait, that wasn't a Bomberman game. No. Don't buy Bomberman 0.
No, like a good Bomberman.
But there's a Bomberman Online for the PlayStation 3, which is very good. Because once again, Bomberman's very simple.
Yeah, it is. It's a very simple game, and it runs well.
It works best when they keep it on that simplicity.
Yeah. So your number 9?
My number 9 is Split once again, and if we ever do a best of arcade, we'll get into a lot of these. I'm a big fan of beat 'em ups, which is something that has died out since the 16-bit generation.
Yeah.
The Lord of the Rings games are kind of beat 'em ups, and there were things that have come in since then.
Yeah.
They've kind of done the new version of beat 'em ups, but I was a huge 16-bit beat 'em up fan. My favorite one in the arcades was Final Fight, so that makes the list. But my favorite one at home was The King of Dragons by Capcom. Capcom also made a Dungeons & Dragons game around the same time, and The King of Dragons is the closest you'll get to that home version on a Western console.
Yeah.
And you get, at the end of each level, you'll get, a new shield that, levels you up.
Yeah.
There's not a choice.
So there's an RPG aspect to it.
And you pick your class at the beginning of the game, dwarf, stuff like that. It's super fun. I highly recommend if you see it. It's a cart that normally runs in the under $10 to $15 range. So I highly recommend you'll pick it up. You'll enjoy it very much.
Okay.
So what's your number 8?
Super Mario Kart. And I know first-party Mario games on a Super NES, that's kind of lame. But, it is the kart game that started a lot of what we see now as far as, the Little Big Planet karting, Mod Nation Racers, is there a Sega one coming out that has Wreck-It Ralph in it? All those kind of games.
Sega All-Stars.
Yeah, they're all kind of based off of Super Mario.
And my favorite kart game is Street Punks.
Street Punks.
Street Punks. Okay. Or Speed Punks. It was for the PlayStation 1. It is super colorful, super fun.
Oh, okay. I vaguely remember that game.
But we're not doing a PS1 list. If that ever showed up, if we ever did a PS1 list,
that would show up for sure.
Needs to be re-released. Shuei Yoshida, you get on that. It's a Sega first-party game, I think, and a PlayStation first-party game. You guys can do it. Do it.
Yeah, just put it on the store for $10.
Yeah.
You'll buy it. I'll buy it twice.
I'll buy it 3 times.
So yeah, and
okay, so
it's Super Mario Kart.
Yeah, we'll be honest here. The reason that didn't show up on my list is because I enjoy Speed Punks more, and I think that Mario Kart 64 is the better game. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, but you didn't have a Nintendo when you were little.
Yeah. So as we go through to find these top 10 games, there's gonna be a lot of stuff missing.
Yeah.
So my number 8 is Buster Bust Loose by Konami. It's a Tiny Toon Adventures game. Yep. It is super fun, super bright. It's the greatest version of like a TV adaptation game.
Like
I
a
can think
kids
of.
show
Yeah.
game.
Buster moves like you want him to move. There was also a Sega version of it that's really good, but the Super Nintendo version's where it's at. The one thing it does that I don't like is if you hit easy, it cancels out a bunch of the levels instead of making all the levels easier.
Yeah.
But it's super
So it
fun,
shortens
super
the
bright.
game.
It does what actually my number 7 pick also does, where it uses the full palette of the Super Nintendo to just paint the world in like huge pastels and just make it really bright, really colorful, and the sprites are big. The animation is great.
Yeah, the animation, from what I saw of it, it was a lot higher quality than what I've seen on a lot of the other Super NES games.
Konami did a good job with a lot of its games.
They eked a lot of power out of the Super NES on that one.
Konami is really well represented in
they
my
do.
top 10. Okay, so what's your number 7?
My number 7 is Rock and Roll Racing. Now, you're like, Rock and Roll Racing, what the hell? It was one of the few games that Blizzard actually made. They weren't Blizzard at that time, but they actually put out on consoles. The other games that I remember,
Lost Vikings.
Not one of my favorite games. I played it. I was little. I didn't know what the hell was going on, so I didn't like that game at the time. But Rock and Roll Racing, it was a racing RPG. As you choose your guy.
There's a story. You go through.
There's a little story mode, but yeah, you can level up your car, buy new cars. You paint them whatever color you want, add weapons, all kinds of cool stuff. And it was 2-player. I don't think it was multi-tap. I don't think you could play up to 4. But I had a lot of fun with it. It was, again, one of my favorite racing games on the Super NES. And oddly enough, I have a lot of those on my list. So, what was your number?
My number 7 is quite possibly one of the greatest understated games for the Super Nintendo. It was pretty popular, so it's pretty easy to find now, but you're still going to pay like $10 to $15 for it. Legend of the Mystical Ninja. It's the first Goemon game that brought Ganbare Goemon, Let's Go Goemon, that came over from the Japan. It is awesome. It is kind of this mix of this weird Zelda action platforming game.
It's a 2D side-scroller, for the
Yeah,
most part.
there are city sections, and you go through the city sections, you can buy upgrades for your character, and you can do little story quests. The Japanese even has a little carnival, and the Japanese version has a carnival, has a little fancy little strip club moment.
Yeah, okay.
But it's super fun. It's really colorful. Once again, it's a Konami game. They really pushed the Super Nintendo to its limit.
They knew what to do with that hardware, for sure.
And the boss battles in it are perfect. It's a great game. It usually doesn't get on lists because it was one of those, it's not a super rare game. It wasn't super popular, but a lot of people had it, and they're like, oh yeah, I really remember that game. It was super fun, super great, and the music's good. It's all 16-bit tunes of Japanese folk music.
Yeah.
So it's super fun, super colorful, and it's super weird because it's kind of this Japan meets like steampunk weirdness. Like there's some places you can go in and play a level of Gradius.
Yeah, and then there's like that huge ass.
Yeah, there's like a jumbo TV. You can play like an Arkanoid clone.
Yeah.
It's super fun, and it's super great, and it's a cartridge that you can find pretty readily. And I love the Ganbare Goemon games. If we did limit this list to only Western releases, if we limited it, if we said you could do anything, there would Ganbare Goemon titles would be like half my list.
Yeah, because there's like 3 or 4 of them.
There's 4.
Yeah, for the Super NES at least.
Ganbare Goemon 2 never made it to the United States. It is one of my the best game released for the Super Famicom.
Yeah. Okay.
And you don't need to speak Japanese to play number 2. You do need to speak Japanese to play number 3, because number 3 is like a full-on Zelda clone.
Yeah, you have to know where you're going.
Yeah.
So.
And number 4 is like the greatest looking Super Nintendo game. Like it came out at the end of the Super Famicom, and they just really pushed it to the limit.
Yep.
Okay, so now we're getting. Everyone, take a breath. So now we're getting to our top 5. So shake. No,
we're
this
top
is number
6.
6. Okay. Okay.
Failed.
Go 6.
It's a little bit of a cheat. Super Mario World. Everybody had it. Everybody played Super Mario World because it was your pack-in game when you first bought your Super NES. But I still found myself going back and playing it again and again and again.
It didn't make my list for the only reason is because Super Mario 3 is better.
The Super Mario 3 is better.
And there's Super Mario All-Stars, so you can still play Super Mario 3.
Yeah, I know. And, I wanted to get All-Stars with Mario World, but it was like $40.
Get it on eBay.
Yeah, I know. But
I think I got mine. My greatest trick is waking up at like 4 in the morning
and getting
doing
on eBay.
doing eBay ending soonest, like the next half hour, and just plunking stuff down.
But it's still one of my favorite 2D Mario games. Mario 3 is better, but as far as a Super NES only title, it is probably the best first person Mario game ever.
First party.
Yeah,
Because a first-person Mario game would
that'd
be
be
crazy.
weird. No, first party Mario game.
Okay, so my number 6, we're going to continue the Konami love.
Yeah, lots of Konami love.
Super Castlevania 4. This is my favorite Castlevania game. Except up to this point to be released.
Yeah, as of when it came
Asterix.
Symphony of the Night.
It's awesome. And then once you get into Dracula's Castle, it breaks into kind of a Symphony of the Night. Like, the map opens up so much. You can go so many different places.
As long as you can jump there, you can get there.
Well, I mean, you're still going left, right, but there's so many different, like, if you go up here, you go this way. If you go down there, you go that way.
Yeah.
It's super fun, super great. I love it. The sprite's super huge. The music is awesome. You really see where that first inkling of the Symphony of the Night music starts coming in.
Yeah.
I highly, once again, this is a cart that was pretty popular.
Yeah.
You're probably going to find it in the
Probably be
$10
able to find it.
range, and you should definitely
Pick it
get
up.
it
Get that.
because it is
game.
awesome.
If your Super NES
Awesome.
works.
Yeah. Okay, so now
We're in the number 5.
we're in the number 5. Dave, what's your number 5?
I actually, and I don't know why I have so many racing games, but I have F-Zero on my list. What is wrong with F-Zero?
Falcon Punch.
He doesn't say it. That doesn't happen until Super
It's the
Smash
lack
Brothers.
of Falcon Punch.
Oh, you need more Falcon Punch?
More Falcon Punch.
It was a, what was it, Mode 7?
Mode 7.
Mode 7 racer, much like Super Mario Kart.
For those of you who don't know, Mode 7 is the one thing that the Super Nintendo would do that the Sega Genesis couldn't do. And basically, the background sprite tiles could be rotated 360.
Yeah. So it was a kind of weird pseudo 3D effect.
Yeah, so like the Legend of Zelda map, the Final Fantasy 3 and 2 maps both worked this way. A bunch of crazy Mode 7 stuff in Castlevania 4 and Contra 3.
There's all kinds of stuff in that. But it's, it was it was a really good racing game. Once you got the handle on the cars, or the ships or whatever they are, you could, just tear it up all day.
Wipeout's better.
Wipeout's better, but it didn't come out until the PS1 game.
I know.
So you got to think of the era in which we're looking at.
Okay.
So what's your number 5?
My number 5, and I had to include a super rare cartridge.
Of course you did.
I don't actually own this cartridge. It's one I've been trying to find for a long time, but I don't want to mortgage my house to get it. But I do have it on the Virtual Console. It's available on the Virtual Console.
For your Wii.
Ogre Battle, March of the Black Queen.
Yes.
It is awesome. Because unlike most strategy RPG games like Tactics Ogre that came after it, Final Fantasy Tactics, Shining Force we talked about last week, this is like a very strategy, move your guys around the map. Like you can pretty much, if you can set it up so that you can ignore the individual battles. You can have them run automatically. The story is really good. It's really deep. There's a big thing with the Zodiac, not the Zodiac,
Yeah, that's Tactics. It has
what's
Zodiac
the cards? Tarot cards.
Tarot cards.
And it's awesome. It's good. It's a game that I've never beaten, but I've played a lot.
Okay. Well, it's probably because it's a strategy RPG. These things take forever.
Super long.
Super.
But it is super rare because it was released towards the end of the Super Nintendo's life cycle in the United States by Enix. Enix, we all know, is now one half of Square Enix. But back in the day,
they were different companies.
Two different competing companies.
Yeah.
So it is awesome, and it is great, and the artwork is wonderful on the Super Nintendo. They really push it. And it uses, once again, Mode 7 graphics in its map, like everyone else does.
That's cool.
Number 4 for Dave.
This is a bit of an oddball.
The whole list has been oddballs.
No, not the whole list. It's called Evo, The Search for Eden. Now, he's never played this game.
Never even heard of it.
Never even heard of this game. Did you like Spore before it turned into a space sim? Because that's what this is.
Oh.
You start out, it's basically
When you said Secret of something, I immediately thought of Secret
of Mana, or
which didn't make my list, but should be on it.
But yeah, you start out as a little fish thing, and you're led around by Gaia, and you.
Seaman?
No, not Seaman. But as you play the game, you earn evolution points, and you can buy upgrades for your guy. It's like an evolution RPG. It's really weird. It's really unique. I have no idea how rare this cartridge is, but I've never seen it in any of the stores that we've gone to.
I haven't even heard of it.
But it's really interesting, and it's a unique game. It's not something that you found a lot on any system prior to like Spore.
Yeah. Well.
And that was a bit of a flop because it got cracked before it was even released.
Well, that's not the
developer's fault. It wasn't the end game on that was not very good either. So.
Okay, so my number 4 is once again a split bill. I couldn't decide which was the better RPG, which was my favorite, Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasy 3/6. For those of you who don't know, the Western Final Fantasy releases are numbered poorly up until Final Fantasy 7.
Where they all sync back up.
Yeah, I think we're getting to the spot now where I think everyone knows that. So Final Fantasy 6, which is, to this day, in my opinion, of the best Final Fantasy. I love Terra's story. I love the music, you know, like I hear that. And I'm like,
and there's a reason OC Remix is trying to get. I think they got blocked by Squeenix on the music for that because they were making a physical copy of it. But there's a reason why OC Remix is doing
it's Nobuo Uematsu's greatest score.
They're doing a full remaster of all the tracks, you know, OC Remix style. So it's going to be awesome. But
so back to the
game itself.
So why that's the best Final Fantasy is that, unlike other Final Fantasies that really focus on the protagonist, which I really like Lightning, I like Cloud. This one, every single person in the group feels very fleshed out and very real. And the story's really cool, and the steampunk was something we didn't see at that time. Except in the other game on my list, which is Chrono Trigger, which if you haven't played Chrono Trigger and you call yourself a RPG fan, you are lying.
I
love Chrono Trigger. I love its sort of parallel sequel, Chrono Cross. Chrono Trigger is the game I've purchased the second most amount of times after Lunar. Because every time it comes out for a system, I'm like, oh, I want that.
If I have that system, I want that.
Yeah, when I buy a DS, I'm going to buy Chrono Trigger for the DS. Probably is one of my first.
Which I didn't realize they'd released it for the DS. I was looking for stuff for it yesterday, and I was like, what?
Yeah, so Chrono Trigger is really great. The story's really fun. Whereas Final Fantasy 6/3 really pushes the RPG trope forward in a big way. Chrono Trigger does the opposite. It takes the RPG trope and then shifts it on its head through time travel and makes it super fun.
It's like a sci-fi RPG.
It's great, and you should pick it up.
And if you don't feel like playing it and you just want to watch somebody play it, I think Giant Bomb did an endurance run on it. I think it's like 30 or 40 hours long.
Yeah, it's very good. And they're funny.
Yeah, and those guys will just go back and forth and talk through the whole thing. You can still hear the game music and whatnot, but...
Number 3.
Mega Man X2, not 1, 2. And because that was the one that got me back into Mega Man. I used to play Mega Man on the NES when I was little, and then it kind of went away for a while because those games were brutally hard. But Mega Man X2 was that right kind of balance of challenge and difficulty, but it was still you could complete it without having to know how to do everything. And it had the Zero. I mean, you couldn't play 0 and 2, you could play them in 3. But, just the fact that they introduced a new Mega Man character to me was enough to draw me back in. And then I went back and played 1, and then I played 3 when it came out. I think I played 4, and I have X5 for my PS1. But...
My favorite's Mega Man X, but it's not on my list.
No. But it was a really good really good game. The thing I
like about Mega Man X is it was one of the first times I remember that anime style, that action anime
and
style, it was really being used, which didn't happen that often.
No, and the fact that
it was more kind of an RPG thing.
Yeah, and what I think part of what really drew me in was with Mega Man X and the whole all those X games, there are equipment upgrades for Mega Man. So you'll get a better Buster Shot, you'll get double dash or air dash in one of them. You'll get a helmet that reduces damage or helps you find secrets. So,
reuse Fireball.
That's in 1. That's in 1. The Dragon Punch is in 2. At 3, I think was the kick, if it's in 3 at all. But yeah, those reignited my love for Mega Man.
Cool.
So
my love for Mega Man never
died. But
never die.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kenji Inafune.
Yes. Sick bastard.
So my number 3 with a bullet. This is another rare cartridge because it came out towards the end. But you can, once again, find it on the Virtual Console. A lot of the games that were not based on licensed properties are on the Virtual Console.
Yeah.
And you owe it to yourself, if you have a Wii, to dust that thing off, connect it to the internet, and spend some Wii points. Wild Guns.
Yeah.
Wild Guns, there's an arcade game called Cabal, where it's basically a arcade shooter. You move your crosshair around, and as you move your crosshair around, your guy at the bottom of the screen moves left and right, and you can duck and dodge and jump behind cover and stuff. And Wild Guns takes this trope
Yeah.
to the utmost insanity.
It is pretty crazy.
Like, you are a wild gunslinger fighting robots, and everything on the screen is blowing up in your face.
Yeah.
And it was developed by Natsume, who also did Harvest Moon. It was developed towards the end of the system's life cycle, so it's rare to find, because it was developed by Natsume, and it was developed towards the end of the system's life cycle. I've seen copies, complete in box, at auction, go for $100.
Yeah, they're. It's a hard to find card.
And it is so fun. I mean, it's not the game you play for hours on end, like
Yeah.
Final Fantasy or Chrono Trigger. You jump in for an hour, it's an arcade title, and it'll blow you away.
Yeah.
You will have so much fun. And it's the best use of 2-player ever. You need to play, do yourself a favor.
Buy that game.
We're doing this for you.
If you can find it, buy it. And
Buy it, play it. It's on the virtual console. You have a Wii, because
what are you going to use
everyone
it
bought
for?
a Wii. Like, use it.
Use it for
Play
playing
this
SNES
game.
games.
Okay, so our number 2
Is the same.
same. And everyone's like, oh, they're going to be like, well, they're missing one. They're missing one. Where's Legend of Zelda? They haven't talked about Legend of Zelda.
Oh, hi.
The one game we both
We both thought was worthy of this list.
the one game we both agreed on, oddly enough, they both landed at number 2.
In the number 2 spot.
Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past,
Yep.
which is my favorite Legend of Zelda to this day. I'm not a big Ocarina fan, but how that game works with the light side and the dark side
Yeah.
is so great, and the progression is nice. And when I think of the Zelda overworld theme, I'm thinking of that version.
Yeah.
One of my favorite memories is right after I got married. I was married about a year, and I'm sitting there playing it, and my wife was doing schoolwork for college, and I hear her in the background just humming along to it. She just instinctively,
Because it's the Legend of Zelda theme. Yeah.
And it's so great. And I had Nintendo Power when it first came out, so I collected. They gave you a collected edition of the comic that tells the story of Link to the Past.
Yeah.
And you can find them on eBay for anywhere from like $15 for a bad copy to like I've seen them go for $70 for a mint
For
copy.
a perfect copy.
And I keep almost buying them. I also have one for Super Mario World that I love, but that I found in a used bookstore. But it's so great, and the different elemental powers you get, the sword slash, the story itself in that one really kind of takes a forefront. You know, you don't think of Zelda games. Now you think of them as like really story front.
Yeah, they're story heavy, but in the first
Zelda
two,
1 and
it
Zelda
was
2 is no story. It's like you knew,
you
like,
save the princess. That's what you're
here's the
doing.
instruction manual. Here's the page
Yeah.
that says what you're doing. Go do it.
Yeah.
Like this was kind of the first integration of story and Zelda.
Yeah, and you know it was when you first start playing it, you're like, okay, so I've got to get these three things, Triforce, okay. But then once you collect all three and you find out that you now have to go to the Dark Worlds to continue your adventure, and then you have all these different dungeons. I mean, this isn't something you can blast through in 3 or 4 hours. It's going to take you a good 10 to 15 hours if you rush. If you go
And
around
don't rush.
and don't rush.
Don't
if
rush.
if you run around looking for all the little secrets and whatnot, you were going to spend at least a good 30, 40 hours in this game. And it's not even like a quote RPG. I would say it's more of an action adventure game with RPG elements.
Yeah.
But it's not like a Final Fantasy RPG. We'll say that. But it is. There's a reason why I've emulated it a few times. I've bought it 3 or 4 times. In fact, I just recently rebought it again.
I have it on my Super Nintendo, my Game Boy Advance. I think I even have it on my Virtual Console just so it's there. I can play.
It is a great game, and it's one of those games where if you do have it on your GBA or if you have it on your phone for whatever reason.
Why would you have it on your phone?
You can sit there, spend 10 minutes just messing around, save, you're good. You don't have to restart from a checkpoint or whatever. It is one of my favorite games, and it is one of my favorite series ever.
I think I could draw the map from memory.
I can do a good chunk of it, yeah.
Okay, so top of your list because we're running out of time.
Super Mario RPG.
I've never played
Legend of the Seven Stars. It is.
it. It also came out towards the end. Of
Yeah,
the
it was
console's
the
life
end
cycle.
of the life cycle of the console, and it was a collaboration of Square, not Square Enix, just Square and Nintendo, and I love it. I've been, I repurchased it like a week ago, and I've probably sunk 20 hours into it already, and it's as good as I remember. The battle system, while simple, because it's Super Nintendo RPG, you still have to figure out how to what mobs are weak to what. You have a timing issue, so you can get either double hits or extra damage if you time it right on your basic attacks. it is just one of my favorite RPGs for the Super NES. Granted, I've not played Final Fantasy 3 or 2 for the Super NES in forever, if ever. I do have the Famicom version of Final Fantasy 6.
Yeah,
I can't use it.
Yeah, I brought it. I
can't use it with my thing. But it is one of my favorite RPGs that I've played on the Super NES, and I remember playing when I was 12 or 13 or whatever it was when it was out. So that is my number one game for the Super NES, the Super Mario RPG, and it is not exactly the cheapest thing. I think mine cost me $40.
Well, yeah, but you're buying it at
I bought it at
vintage stock that specializes in this stuff.
Yeah,
so
it's
prices are gonna be a
similar
little
to that.
steeper.
But
you
still
still
really
can't
good.
find it for less than $20 on eBay.
No, $25 minimum for that. So
okay, so my fave, my number one, is probably on a lot of people's lips right now, and is not Earthbound. We'll get that out of the way.
probably because you haven't beat Earthbound yet.
No, I've never beaten Earthbound. My number one with a bullet is Super Metroid.
Yeah.
Because it does everything Metroid did on the Nintendo with atmosphere and exploration and stuff. Super Metroid refines.
Yeah, it does.
And that opening sequence where it's like the text scrolls across the screen like it does in Alien, and you see the destroyed scientists and the Metroid sitting there just chirping in its little pod. It's like that's good. Like that sets up like this isn't.
Yeah.
This isn't like Super Mario. This isn't like Zelda. This isn't like anything else on the system. It's kind of a darker, more progressive game.
Yeah.
And Metroid, for me, really hasn't ever matched that since. Like, the Prime games are very good in their own way, but
they're not like this.
Doesn't give you kind of the alien world feel that Super Metroid gave me, and still gives me to this day.
Yeah.
And I love so much of that game.
Yeah, and that map was huge.
Yes.
I mean, that map, that rivals Symphony of the Night size map. It is pretty huge. And that's kind of where the term Metroidvania kind of, it's a Metroid game, but it's a Castlevania game. That's where that phrase comes from, but that is where those huge sprawling maps started.
Yeah, the Super Metroid for me, like, it really drove me. That map is what drives you on. Like, oh, I want like this. There's not a wall.
There's this little
on
black
this,
square I want to go check
on
out.
this tile. Like, how do I get up there? Like,
And
if
it
I
had-
run really quickly and then do 3 jumps, I'll catapult myself there.
And the gating was there, right? Like you couldn't get here until you have this power up,
you see
or
the
until
door that you can't open, and you're like, oh, I want to open that door.
And that's another thing that was like really good with Legend of Zelda was there was gating. Like there's this block in the way, you can't move it yet.
Yeah,
So
but
you
I can see
back
there's
later.
stuff on the other side of that block that I want to get to.
Yeah, and same thing with a lot of those big world maps. They have to gate you, but it's worth it because
And the gating is what drives you on as a gamer.
and those kinds of games, they have the replay value to do it again. It's like okay, I've done all this.
Try and get it as quick as you can.
Yeah. And it's
Like
if
I guess the question we asked each other is, if you were stuck on a desert island, what game would you want to play the most often? And mine is Super Metroid.
Yeah, and mine would probably be Mario RPG.
Like I said, like my list was very heavy on like the games that made the difference between the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis and really pushed that color palette.
Yeah.
Super Metroid doesn't do that. It's a
No,
very
it's
dark, muddy color palette, but it uses it to just great use.
To great effect.
Yeah, I really want more games just like that. Now, I've played all the Metroids that have come since then, and they're not just like that. Like,
No.
they're
they're a little bit brighter.
the mid-90s, like, they hit something there, and they were like, okay, well, we're good.
Yeah.
So there were a bunch of games we left out. There were a bunch of games on our almost lists.
Yeah.
I can name 2 on mine. Breath of Fire. I
Yeah.
loved Breath of Fire. It's a very generic RPG, but it's super cool. And Street Fighter. Street Fighter was on mine. Street Fighter 2, but that was better in the arcades. We didn't include it on the list.
Yeah.
So what were 2 on your honorable mention list?
Sadly, mine were like prequels to the games that were already there. So Mega Man X. And I don't know. I didn't think about anything outside of my top 10. I did want to include Mega Man X, but it was like I played 2 first, so that kind of stuff. And I don't know. I didn't have a whole lot of Super Nintendo games. So a lot of what these are the games that I had when I in the mid '90s when I had a Super Nintendo. But yeah, it's there's a lot of games that we didn't mention. There's a lot of games that we should have mentioned that we didn't, and there's a lot of games that we just forgot about.
So to tease our next segment for next week, what was the game for you that you saw in like 95, 96, or 97 that signaled the end of the 16-bit era?
Ooh, that's to think about that.
I can totally think of the, like, I saw this game advertised in a magazine, and I knew we're never going back to 2D sprites. I mean, we have, but
no, are you talking like, okay, this is going to be on the next consoles, or are you?
No, I'm talking like the game that made
the last game on that console.
The game that made you want to give up your Super Nintendo or your Sega Genesis.
Okay.
And that game for me was Final Fantasy VII. I saw that demo where the train pulls into the station and you see Cloud. I was like,
hey,
we're not
spiky triangle, man.
Yeah, we're not going back. Like,
but we did. We still do.
And oddly enough, a lot of my favorite Super Nintendo games are, I mean, PlayStation 1, Beyond games are 2D sprite games. Yeah. But so what was that game for you?
Oh, hell, I don't remember. I have to think about it. I'd almost want to say Super Mario 64, but that's not right. I don't know. I'd have to think about it.
Okay, so next time we're going to bring you our favorite PlayStation 1 games.
Okay.
Don't forget to spay and neuter your Pokemon. I see you not doing it. You must control the Rattata population.